Why talking things out never works with a narcissistic woman. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. Just talk it out. That's what everyone says when there's conflict, right? Communication is supposed to be the key to solving any relationship problem. But what happens when the person you're trying to talk to isn't interested in solving anything, only in winning? That's what it's like trying to talk things out with a narcissistic woman. You think you're having a conversation. She thinks you're entering a battlefield. You walk in hoping for peace. She walks in ready for control. At first, it's confusing. You approach her with sincerity. You just want to understand each other, clear the air, and maybe find common ground. But somehow, the more you talk, the worse things get. What started as a calm discussion turns into chaos. You find yourself defending things you never meant to say, apologizing for things you didn't do, and wondering how a simple conversation turned into a character assassination. That's because when you talk to a narcissistic woman about a problem, she doesn't hear your feelings, she hears an attack. In her mind, any form of feedback is criticism, and criticism is the ultimate threat. Narcissists have fragile egos wrapped in armor made of arrogance. So, the moment you say something like, "I felt hurt when you ignored me," she doesn't process the emotion behind your words. Instead, she thinks, "How dare you accuse me?" Suddenly, the focus shifts from the issue at hand to your tone, your timing, your words, anything she can twist to make you the problem. You try again, you rephrase, soften your words, speak gently, because you don't want to fight. But that only feeds her control. The more you bend to avoid conflict, the more she senses your emotional compliance. She'll interrupt you mid-sentence, roll her eyes, mock your feelings, or play the victim. And before you know it, you're not explaining your point anymore. You're trying to prove you're not the bad guy she's painting you to be. That's the trap. Narcissistic women are masters of emotional redirection. If the topic threatens their self-image, they'll twist the narrative in seconds. You bring up how she flirted with someone at a party, and suddenly you're too jealous, too controlling, or too insecure. You express that you felt disrespected, and she flips it. "Why are you attacking me again?" Every time you try to explain yourself, she takes your truth and spins it into a story that makes her the victim and you the villain. And it doesn't stop there. When talking doesn't give her the reaction she wants, she'll escalate. Tears, anger, silent treatment, guilt tripping, it's all part of the performance. One moment she's crying, saying, "I can't believe you'd think that about me." And the next, she's cold and distant, saying, "You always make me feel like the bad guy." These emotional swings are not random. They're manipulation. They're how she keeps control of the emotional tone of the conversation, ensuring you're always reacting instead of thinking. So why doesn't talking it out ever work? Because for a narcissistic woman, conversation is never about connection. It's about domination. You enter with vulnerability, but she sees that as weakness. You offer empathy, and she uses it as leverage. You try to explain your side, and she weaponizes your words against you later. The more honest you are, the more ammunition she gathers. Every detail you share, every emotion you express, it becomes part of her control strategy. What you don't realize is that she's not listening to understand. She's listening to collect. Collect your weaknesses, your triggers, your insecurities. So the next time there's a disagreement, she'll use your own words to cut you down. You once told her about your fear of abandonment? In the next fight, she'll coldly say, "You're just scared I'll leave, that's why you're acting like this." You once said you hated being disrespected? She'll test that boundary just to watch your reaction and prove she can still pull your strings. Talking things out assumes that both people want resolution. But narcissistic women don't want resolution. They want validation. They want to win. They want to feel superior, even if it means emotionally destroying the person who loves them. Every argument becomes a stage where she performs her favorite roles: the misunderstood victim, the righteous hero, or the emotionally wounded woman who can't believe how cruel you're being. She's never accountable, never reflective, never truly sorry, because in her world, she's always right. Even when she apologizes, it's not real. It's strategic. She'll say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," instead of "I'm sorry I hurt you." It sounds like empathy, but it's actually blame disguised as compassion. It implies your feelings are the problem, not her actions. And once you accept that fake apology, the cycle resets. She gets her control back. You get temporary peace, and nothing truly changes. Over time, you start to realize that every talk follows the same exhausting pattern. You bring up an issue. She deflects, attacks, or plays the victim. You defend, explain, or apologize. Then she either shuts down completely or pretends everything's fine until the next time it happens. That's not communication. That's emotional warfare. It's not two people growing. It's one person shrinking to keep the peace. You start to lose your voice without even noticing. You think, maybe if I stay calm, she'll finally understand. But she never does. Because deep down, she doesn't want understanding. She wants control over how you feel. The more confused, guilty, and off balance you become, the more powerful she feels. That's why even calm, rational conversations somehow end with you doubting yourself. You start to wonder, maybe I am overreacting. That's gaslighting, her favorite invisible weapon. So, what's the solution? Ironically, it's the opposite of what your heart wants. You can't talk it out. You have to walk away from the conversation entirely. You can't reason with someone whose reality changes every time it threatens their ego. You can't heal through communication when the other person uses communication as a tool to manipulate. The only way to win is not to play. The moment you stop chasing understanding from someone who thrives on confusion, you take back your power. When you stop engaging in endless explanations, arguments, and justifications, something remarkable happens. Her control begins to fade. She can't feed off your reactions anymore. She can't twist your words if you don't offer them. Silence becomes your strongest boundary. It's not cold, it's self-protection. Because with a narcissistic woman, peace doesn't come from talking things out. It comes from not talking at all. And that's the painful truth most empathic people learn too late. They keep believing, if I can just explain it right, she'll understand. But the narcissist doesn't lack understanding. She lacks empathy, and no amount of words can fill that void. So stop trying to make her see your heart. She already sees it, she just doesn't care to protect it. The moment you stop trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your sanity because in the end, talking things out only works with people who want to grow, not with someone who only wants control. With a narcissistic woman, silence isn't avoidance, it's healing. It's the sound of freedom from a conversation that was never meant to lead to peace in the first place.